Hey there guys, so a little bit different style of video, able to bring professionals on now. Remy, he's a qualified osteo, so we're just going to run through a few things that we come across in bench press. We're both powerlifters. How long have you been lifting for?
I've been lifting for about 7 years now.
So 7 years, this is my 18th year in the sport. And just talking about a few injuries relating to more shoulders, because a few of you guys have come across that and have asked about how do we go about it. So for me, in terms of like shoulder injuries, I've been pretty fortunate that I haven't run into too many. The biggest thing that I suffer with is a lack of external rotation, more specifically on my left hand side. Right, still not great, but I train bench enough. I keep the ranges of motions where I need, and I can do them all pain-free. So for me, as long as I have relatively okay mobility, I'm not concerned about having like perfect mobility. But if I ever came across where I sort of feel stiff or sore during the range of motion that I'm really used to lifting in, that's when I get like external help, troubleshoot why is it happening. So like example is, right, I can easily get my arm up, left sort of limited to about here at the moment. It's quite tight. I got a little bit of an injury going. When I go to bench, it's perfectly fine, but I know that I've got to do some work in the area. How about yourself?
Yeah, 100%. Stability is so important in the shoulder, guys. But if you think about it, your humerus, this bone here, and how it sits in your shoulder blade, if this is the head of this bone here, it's really sitting in a socket that's only about that big. So if your muscles don't apply enough stability to that joint, it's where you're going to come into issues, and really specifically those longer injuries that start kind of niggly and then get worse and worse and worse. And dealing with people who train, who don't train, shoulders probably the biggest thing that I actually see in the clinic. It's almost bigger than lower back pain. So really, really important, and important that you create training around shoulder health as well as your big pressing kind of macro strength, right? We want to get our pressing stronger, but if we're not doing enough to target shoulder health, shoulder stability, you guys see all the accessories that Laird's doing, the crazy presses, all this sort of stuff. If you're not doing that work, your bench is going to stall and it's going to suffer. So that's really, really important. And Laird can definitely attribute to that, having an elite bench press over 250 kilos. So,
what would you find more common, internal or external shoulder issues?
how long is a piece of string? Everyone's going to have a different complaint, but that's why an assessment is so important. Everyone's different. When it comes to shoulder impingement, which you typically see, pain at the front of the shoulder, whether that's a lack of stability in external rotation, causing those other areas to overcompensate. I mean, it happens both ways. That's why we assess the person's movement and then apply that specific intervention to what they like.
Alright, so we'll pick, say for instance, mine, left hand side, struggling with external rotation of the shoulder.
Yeah.
What would be a few of your go-tos in my case?
In terms of like exercises that we can do?
One exercise and one mobility drill.
Yeah, cool. A lot of the mobility stuff with the shoulder, with joints that require a lot of stability, I tend to actually target the stability as the underlying base that's actually going to help the mobility. Yeah. So the reason why you have a mobility issue most of the time is because of a lack of stability. So something like angry lock series, the lock pick 3, loading things in extension, in external rotation. You guys don't need a lot of weight, small dumbbells. That's a really good exercise. Maybe we can throw up quickly and show you what that looks like.
Another video easily.
Yeah, 100%. But that's a really good place to start a series like that, which is really focusing on those shoulder blade mechanics, contracting, extending, externally rotating. That's probably a good one to start when I start.
Yeah. For me, like a general staple for keeping my shoulders healthy was just the one-arm overhead press. Yeah. That was just something to hit anterior delt, but it also hit the medial and rear delts as well. But on top of that, like the upper back just had to work really hard to stabilize the scapula. When you get really good at stabilizing the scapula under heavy load, I just find that my shoulders, they don't get used to stabilizing.
Yeah,
And so like I've only just picked up this, say complaint as opposed to a proper injury. And again, it was stability related. So I was doing dumbbell bench. It's an exercise that I'm not really used to doing. And each hand has to work independently, and dumbbells force you to really stabilize. And yeah, it's just been a while since I did it. And the day before I did bench as well. So shoulders were already a little bit pre-taxed. So that probably just pushed us over the edge. I probably should have gone a little bit lighter. But same token, it's like, well, at least I know that dumbbell bench is an effective exercise that I need to do a little bit more just to learn to really lock into position, hold where I need to, let everything work as it should. Because it's just, I didn't retract the scapula quite as properly as I should have. I was just stuck in I don't want to say like a protracted position, so I was trying to lay down onto the bench. And I didn't particularly like how the dumbbells were like cutting into the side, so I was sort of concentrating on that and then lowering myself back. So again, stability, got to work on that. Another one that I also like is shrugs, just for upper back mass and stability as well. Yeah, so scapular related.
Loads of upper back, really important. The only thing I'd say with that is that, again, when you assess someone, you want to see is that upper trap working too hard, right? Is that actually going to be an aggravating factor? But if it's not, then upper trap shrugs. I love mid trap rows, like high and incline bench. You guys can set an incline bench, dumbbell rows, really focusing on that mid trap as well. Unilateral stuff as well, so important.
Yeah. Going then back to like also bench press as well. Typically, I train with lower volume, just a little bit older. I'm definitely not old. I'm 34 and more 25. So I'm going to basically say you're going to have a fair bit more volume than me. Typically for me, I like 2 heavy top sets followed by 2 back off sets where I'm still pushing decent weight. But I find 4 total sets of bench for me is all I need for the actual bench press. And then later in the weeks, definitely in a competition prep, I'll have a lighter bench day where I'll just go 4 sets of 10 at 75 to 80% of the weight that I used on day one. That lighter bench day is always going to move well, but it's more like keeping the movement pattern clean. Basically, when you go really heavy, I find if you're grinding out the last few reps, the movement pattern starts to break down, and then the next time I come back to it, I don't want to come back to a movement pattern that's like slow and clunky. So I find the lighter bench day on the Thursday, especially in a comp prep, like that's moving real quick. Monday session, I come back, bench press is moving nice and neat, simply because I left it in a clean state at the end of the session. How about yourself? Set this volume.
Yeah, depends greatly on what sort of macro cycle I'm in my blocks. So macro cycle meaning if I'm more in a hypertrophy phase, a volume accumulation phase, or a strength phase. I actually do train with relatively low volume, but I think there's a lot of variables that can take into place there. So obviously, you being a bigger mass and probably lifting an overall heavier load than I am, that's going to take into account. Yes, age is a factor, but also my range of motion on my press is a bit smaller than yours too. So I can handle a little bit more volume and intensity because of that. But in terms of what it looks like, I usually bench 3 times a week. I find that works well for me, really because my bench is a high skill that I need to keep training. But if it was less skillful, if I didn't rely on my technique as much, I'd probably get away with less, maybe 2 exposures. I'm actually experimenting with 2 at the moment, bringing it back down as I'm gaining body weight, getting a little bit more advanced in my training. And I generally would say the longer you've been training, you probably need less. As well.
How many sets and reps would you do in a session?
In this, probably not more than 5 sets. I'm doing 6 sets on my primary day at the moment, a 6x4, and then this is when I'm benching twice a week now at the moment on this block that I'm on. So I've got a 6x4, but usually if I'm doing a top set method, I'll have a top triple, a top double, then I'll back it up with less. But one thing that I've experimented with recently is doing a lot of sets of low reps. So in my comp prep that I just had, I would do a top single, then I'd do a 5x2, and that was heavy. That was not close to failure, but quite heavy load. And having that multiple sets of heavy load really got me accustomed to just being under heavy load, not being scared of heavy load. So that's also something that's really helped my bench as well.
Yeah, I found like for me, especially in a comp prep, heavy singles always went well, but I also found Heavy singles I could always recover very well from. It didn't take much out of me at all. 5 sets of 2, I think, for me would. I'm not going to say think. I know it could be. So yeah, you got that. No, I wouldn't be able to do that. I just wouldn't recover enough. So I find for me, like, I can hit a heavy single really quite well, even if I feel a bit under the weather. And then I can generally get one really good top set, and then after that, if I've done in a big day, everything else will just be it'll be a wreck after that. I won't be able to hold multiple sets. Really good example would be, like, sometimes I'll hit one top set in a comp prep. I'll get 8 or 10 reps as like the heavy, like, top set in that mass building phase. And then have a 7-8 minute break. After that, I'll generally still probably get that 8 to 10 rep mark, but set 3 I'll be down to 2-3 reps. After a 7 minute break, I'm just cooked. And that's why for me I find 2 top sets works really well, because that's sort of all I can really handle. If it's a huge day of labouring, I'll hit that one top set, and then the other set, it just won't be there. I'll just lift it out and go nuts. Something feels wrong, I'm just going to get injured. It doesn't feel right. And that's why for me I've gone with 2 top sets and then 2 back off sets. And in the past, the 2 top sets for volume were like 2 sets of 10 at 180, and then the back off sets were 2 sets of 10 at 160. If I was having, as I said, like a really off day, it'd be 1 set of 10, and the back offs I'll probably do 1 set of 10 at 160, and then I'd probably drop it down further to 140 and just do another 2 sets of 10. Call out for bench.
I agree with that 2-set method, especially with any exercise where you're going close to failure and you're really hitting or maxing out your capacity in the muscle tissue. So what I mean by that, for me, if I was doing an accessory, for example, dumbbell press, whatnot, I'm only going to do 2 sets. So I'm really hammering up, really yamming it, getting the most out of my pecs, and after that you're cooked. People who do 5 sets of 10 on an exercise and the same weight for every exercise, you can't tell me that you've actually gone balls to the wall or not.
Unless it's something like GVT.
Right.
So GVT, the goal is just to you fail at the end.
Correct.
It's
but even then, it's load managed to a point.
Correct. You've got the break times. But that's it. So it's just sort of shoulders covered, bench, sets and reps covered. Last thing to that, when you said you're benching 3 times a week, what were the bench days on that?
So usually I hit a primary day, and that's the day that I want to get not only the heaviest but the best skill exposure and feel the best. Then I'd have a secondary day, a little bit more volume and technique focused, still trying to get a lot out of it. And then my 3rd day would probably be a precursor to my primary day, quite light, very low volume, and that would just be my primary day, just really to hammer that skill in. So say if my primary bench was on a Monday, my secondary would then be on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and then probably on the Saturday or maybe even the Sunday, I hit that, I call it tertiary, so 3rd bench day, which is really a primer for my primary day. So that's not 3 days of me trying to go really hard, that's setting myself up for that primary day so that I can hit the best expression of myself on that day.
Oh, that's good. We'll just leave it there and keep bringing the videos to you guys. So hit like and subscribe. If you guys have any questions or topics you want covered, comment below and we'll get around to it.
Thanks, guys.